She was upstairs. I could hear her footsteps. And I was sitting at the kitchen counter staring at a folder on her laptop that had been quietly planning the end of my life. For 3 years. The folder had a name. Just a date. 3 years ago exactly. And something in my gut knew, before I even clicked it, that I was about to find out who my wife actually was underneath the woman I thought I had married. By the end of this story, you will understand exactly why she built that folder. And I promise you, you will not be able to decide whether she was wrong. Stay with me, because this goes somewhere you are not expecting. She had left the laptop open by accident. Or maybe not. I still don't know. That question alone has kept me up more nights than I can count. I needed to send a quick email. I sat down. I moved the mouse. The screen came alive. The folder was right there on the desktop. No hiding. No deep file structure. Just sitting there, named with a date, like it had been waiting. I clicked it. Inside were subfolders. Organized. Color-coded. Labeled. Our bank. Our mortgage company. Our accountant. A folder called Timeline. A folder called Assets, his. A folder called Assets, mine. And at the very bottom of the list, one that stopped my breathing completely. After, I sat there for 4 minutes without moving. I know because I checked my phone when I came back to myself. It was 7:14 p.m. The last time I had looked at anything, it was 7:10. For minutes. Gone. Like 4 years of believing we were fine. I need to tell you something before this goes further. I am not a good man in the clean, simple way that makes a story easy. I have been selfish in this marriage in ways that embarrass me now. I have chosen work over her more times than I can count. I have started arguments at midnight over nothing and said things I cannot take back. I have been in the same room as my wife and been entirely somewhere else. I am not the victim of this story. I want to be honest about that before you spend any sympathy on me, because you deserve to know who you're following into this. But what I found in that folder made me feel like a stranger in a house I had lived in for 9 years. And that feeling, that cold, total, nauseating feeling of realizing you do not actually know the person sleeping next to you. I would not give that to anyone. I opened Timeline first. It was a document. 12 pages. The first line read, projected separation date, March of next year. Next year. 11 months from that moment. She had a projected separation date. Written down. Saved. Color-coded inside a folder on a laptop she left open on a kitchen counter while she walked around. Upstairs in her gray sweatshirt, like everything was completely fine. The document was surgical. Which accounts to move funds from and when. The approximate value of every asset we owned, with notes on which ones she would argue were hers in mediation. A section on the house. A section on the car. And then a section that simply said, children. Custody arrangement. Primary with me. Primary with me. We have 2 kids. A daughter who is 8. A son who is 6. She had already decided. Not after a court hearing. Not after a conversation. Not after giving me a single chance to say one word about my own children. She had decided, quietly, privately, inside a document I was never supposed to read, that my role in my children's daily lives would be reduced to a custody schedule. And she had decided that 3 years ago, while I was making dinner, while I was watching television in the next room, while I was holding her hand in parking lots thinking we were doing okay. I opened Assets, his. Screenshots. My salary. My investment accounts. A pension from a job I had left years ago. She had found the statements. I do not know when. I don't know which evening she did it, while I thought she was reading or asleep. I thought I knew this woman's schedule down to the hour. I thought I understood how she moved through her days. But she had photographed those documents at some point I cannot locate in my memory, and she had filed them inside a legal case she was building against the life we shared. She wasn't planning to leave me. She was planning to dismantle me. And then I heard her footsteps on the stairs. I closed the laptop. Not all the way. Just enough. I picked up my phone. I was staring at a black screen when she walked in, wearing the gray sweatshirt with her hair up and a small crease on her cheek from wherever she'd been lying down. She looked at me the way she had looked at me 10,000 times before. Ordinary. Easy. Completely unguarded. Did you eat yet? I was thinking of ordering Thai food. She wanted to know if I wanted Thai food. I looked at her. I really looked. The way you look at someone when you are trying to find the person you believe they were underneath the person you are now terrified they might actually be. Sure, I said. Thai sounds good. And she smiled and reached for her phone. And I sat 3 feet away and watched her place the order. And I said nothing. That is the moment I am most ashamed of in this entire story. Not what came after. Not the 2 weeks of quiet investigation that followed. Not the decisions I eventually made. This moment. This exact moment. Because some part of me was not ready. Some part of me needed one more normal night before everything I thought I had collapsed completely. So I performed being a husband while the folder sat closed on the counter between us. And I know some of you have done exactly this. You saw something. You knew something. You felt something shift permanently inside you. And you ordered the food. Anyway, and laughed in the right places and passed the napkins and let one more ordinary night cover the truth like a blanket over a body. I am not judging you. I can't. The food arrived. We ate at the kitchen table. She told me about something that happened at work, and I laughed when I was supposed to and asked follow-up questions. I already cannot remember. I poured her water when her glass was empty. I was a perfect husband for 90 minutes while my brain was quietly scanning every memory from the last 3 years, trying to find the exact moment I had missed the beginning of this, trying to locate the precise Tuesday or Friday or ordinary Sunday afternoon when she had opened her laptop and started building the architecture of a life without me. After dinner, she went upstairs. I opened after. And this is the part of the story that changed everything I thought I understood about what was actually happening. After was not legal documents. It was not financial strategy. It was a letter she had written to herself. Not to a lawyer. Not to a mediator. To herself. In her own voice. About what her life was going to feel like after she left. She wrote about an apartment. Not a specific one, but the kind she wanted. Near good schools. A second bedroom for the kids. Morning light. She wrote about having mornings to herself for the first time in years. She wrote about a solo trip somewhere she had always wanted to go, that we had never once prioritized. She wrote about cooking what she wanted for dinner without negotiating. She wrote about silence that felt like rest instead of distance. And then she wrote the line that I have not been able to put down since the night I read it. I have been disappearing inside this marriage for years. I need to find out if there is still something left of me to recover. She had not built that folder because she hated me. She had built it because she had stopped believing I would ever notice she was gone. I read that line 4 times. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen for a long time. Because that line was not the language of a woman planning a heist. That was the language of someone who had been underwater for a long time and had quietly, privately, without ever telling me, decided that the only way to survive was to plan an escape route. And I had not known she was underwater. I had been right there. Same house, same bed, same Sunday mornings with coffee, same couch, same 9 years of a life built together. And I had not once looked over and seen that she was drowning. What does that make me? I need you to stay with that question, because it is the question that cracked me open. Not the folder, not the projected separation date, not even the custody column. The fact that she had been disappearing inside our marriage for years. In her own words, in a letter she wrote to herself that she never planned for me to see. And I had been standing right next to her the entire time. 2 weeks later, I did something I am neither proud of nor ashamed of. I read her emails. Not all of them. I searched for specific names. And I found a thread with a therapist. A therapist I had no idea she was seeing. A therapist she had been meeting with for 3 years. The same 3 years the folder had been growing. The emails were mostly scheduling. But in one of them she had written a brief note explaining why she needed to reschedule. And in that note, she mentioned what she was working through in their sessions. She was working through what it meant to stay in a marriage where she felt invisible. Invisible. Not mistreated. Not lied to. Not cheated on. Invisible. And the folder, the color-coded, legally prepared, 3-year exit strategy, had been her pressure valve. Her proof that she was not trapped. Her reminder that she had a way out if she ever needed one. Because she had watched her mother get destroyed in a divorce. When she was 14 years old, her mother had no plan, no documentation, nothing. And she had come out of it with nothing. And her daughter had watched that happen. And at some age, in some quiet internal decision that a young girl made and never let go of, she had promised herself she would never be caught like that. The folder was not cruelty. It was survival built by someone who had already lived through someone else's destruction. I confronted her on a Thursday evening. Kids were at her sister's. I sat at the kitchen table, placed the open laptop in front of her, and said 4 words. Talk to me, please. She went still. Not panicked. Not guilty. Still. like she had rehearsed this moment and also never believed it would actually come. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she looked up. How long have you known? 2 weeks. Why did you wait? Because I needed to understand it before I said anything. And I'm still not sure I do. So I need you to help me. She told me later that those last 6 words were the reason she talked to me. Not the discovery. Not the confrontation. The fact that I had come in without a position, without a defense, without the argument already loaded. She said in 9 years of conflict between us, she could not remember a single time I had walked into a hard moment and said, I need you to help me. I had always come in ready to win. This time I came in ready to listen. She talked for 2 hours. I am not going to detail those 2 hours completely because some of that belongs only to us. But here is what I understood by the end of it. She had not been actively planning to file. She had been managing her fear. Every time our marriage got colder, every time I came home late and gave her nothing, every time we went 2 or 3 weeks without a real conversation, every time she sat beside me on the couch and felt entirely alone, she would open the folder, update a document, add a screenshot, close it. It was her way of breathing, her proof that she could survive whatever came. Not that she wanted to use it, just that it existed. She had not told me she was unhappy because she had tried. In the earlier years, in smaller ways that I had not heard, she had said things like, I feel like you're not really here even when you're here. And I had responded with a defense. And the conversation had passed, and we had moved on. And she had slowly, invisibly, stopped trying to reach me in those ways. And she had started building the folder instead. I remember those conversations now. I remember them differently than I did before. I remember thinking at the time that she was being dramatic, that she wanted to fight, that she was always pushing when things were fine. I remember choosing to believe things were fine because it was easier than sitting in the truth. She was trying to hand me. She wasn't wrong to stop trying to hand it to me. I kept dropping it. Here is the thing I have not told anyone except one person. When I sat across from her that Thursday night and finally heard all of it, I felt something I had not expected at all. Not just grief, not just guilt, relief. Because the folder, as devastating as it was to find, had done something that years of ordinary living had failed to do. It had made the invisible visible. It had taken all the quiet damage and the unspoken distance and the accumulating slow erosion of 2 people who had stopped really reaching for each other, and it had given it a name, a file size, a location on a desktop. It had said what neither of us had been brave enough to say at the kitchen table. Something is wrong. Something has to change, or this ends. And now we both knew. We started couples therapy 3 weeks later. We are still going. I am not going to tell you it fixed everything because that would be a lie dressed up as a happy ending. Some of what I have learned about myself in those sessions, I would have preferred never to know. The version of me I thought I was in this marriage and the version my wife had been experiencing were not always the same man. Sitting with that, really sitting with it instead of defending against it, is the hardest thing I have done in my adult life. She did not file, but she has not deleted the folder. I know because I asked her. About a month after the confrontation, on a quiet Sunday morning with coffee, I asked her if she had deleted it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, no, and I'm not ready to. I said, okay. Not resignation, not defeat. I said it because I think that folder is the most honest thing currently living in our marriage. Because as long as she keeps it, she is telling me something true. That she is still here, still trying. But she is not going back to invisible. She is not going back to drowning quietly in a house with a man who looked directly at her and did not see her going under. She is keeping her options because she has not yet decided whether I am capable of becoming the marriage she needs. And my job, the only job I have right now, is to prove that I am. Whether I am doing it well enough, I cannot tell you yet. But some nights, she reaches for my hand in the dark, and I hold it, and I don't say anything, and I think about the folder. And I think about how the most important truths in a marriage are almost always the ones that never got said until the silence built a document around them. Here is where I am going to leave you. If you found out tonight that the person you love had been quietly building an exit from your life, not out of hatred, not out of cruelty, but out of a hunger for something they had stopped believing they could ever ask you for, what would you feel first? Would you call it betrayal? Or would you call it a mirror? And if the honest answer is somewhere in the space between those two things, what do you actually do with that? Not in therapy, not in a confrontation, In the quiet of a kitchen at 7:14 p.m. with the laptop open and the footsteps coming down the stairs and the rest of your life waiting on the other side of whatever you say next. I have been sitting with that question for months. I still don't have an answer I'm comfortable with. And I don't think comfort is the point anymore. Drop your thoughts below. I read every single one. Because I think a lot of you have lived some version of this, on one side of the table or the other, and I think your answer matters more than mine does.